Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, and welcome to the Transporter Room. Today, we have a very special guest join us, Stan Williams. Stan is one of the hosts of the popular YouTube channel Salon. So let's beam Stan in. Hey, Stan.
Hello, and thank you for lying to your audience on my behalf, calling us popular. But we are a small but mighty podcast where we're growing every day with our 180 subscribers. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And y'all are. I really enjoy it. Now, I may not agree with all the outcomes that y'all decide some days, but hey, we're not supposed to agree on everything, you know, especially right now on the.
That's all right. It's my burden to have correct opinions, and not everybody agrees with them. It's all right.
That's right. Especially right now, because Enterprise is one of my favorite series.
You're the one. I am enjoying it. I truly enjoying it. This rewatch in Trump's America 2025. It's a different vibe than watching it during the War on Terror, which it mirrors very directly, especially season 3. But I do. There's a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of great performances, even if the material is rough at times.
Yeah. Well, and I will say that's what I have liked about us, even though I may not agree with all the comments but I see where y'all are coming from though. Because again, like you, I watched it when it first came out. And sure, I probably have some, blinders on some of it because it's when your show that you like, you're kind of like, giving the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I've actually seen where the group has come with some of their decisions on it. So it kind of hurts a little, but I'm growing.
I still enjoy it. I love all Star Trek, including the Trek that I don't particularly care for. I still love that it exists because I know that it may not be my favorite Trek, but it's someone else's favorite Trek. And the more Trek we can get, the better. It's great for the franchise overall.
Agreed. And if we don't watch what they produce, we're not going to get any more. And, that even goes for that thing that they called a movie.
I was wondering if you'd bring it up, the specter of Section 31, the Stundertones of it. What it boils down to for me is I agree with a lot of the criticism of the movie. I don't agree with any of the hate of the movie. It's just wild to me to, be. How do I say this diplomatically, even though some of these YouTubers were not being diplomatic with their nonsense, saying something that was produced by Star Trek isn't Star Trek, a little childish. Saying this is the death of the franchise is just ridiculous and hyperbolic. There are plenty of criticisms of the movie. We shared them on the Salon, certainly. But it was exactly what they said it was going to be. It was a fun distraction, and I'm glad it did well on the platform because, I would like to see more with them if it was a choice of anything else or that. I would go with anything else, certainly. But it was fun.
Oh, I agree, and I don't remember. I think every single channel on the planet did a review of. Even I did one. It was my one. It was my first live, and we did it. And I personally did not have a problem with the movie because, in their defense, there was a series that they squashed into 93 minutes, and a lot of people just don't understand how much how much was cut just to get that.
Yeah, one thing I said on the Salon is watching the movie, I can see the outline of a season, and I can see where some character development got lost. Like I could see backstory for all of those characters being the B story of an episode in a season, and you have to lose that when you truncate it. And paying for a completely fresh script when You don't know when you're going to get Michelle Yeoh back after winning that Oscar, especially. You know, it they had a window of time to do it, and they got it done. And I hope for more streaming movies. Certainly, I do think there's more stories to tell in that vein. I actually really liked that they moved away from the cartoon villainy of a Section 31, like in Discovery season 2. Although I did enjoy the season overall, and more into a Mission Impossible type organization. I liked that vibe, so I could see more with them. But I also really like the idea of just more streaming movies, maybe a Lower Decks, maybe a backdoor pilot for a different kind of show, maybe, um, the political workings of the Federation would be a really interesting streaming movie. The possibilities are endless, but like you said, we gotta watch the Trek that we get in the meantime and not discourage people from watching it so that we get to make more.
Agreed. And that's funny that you say that because that was I during one of my reviews, I specifically called it Mission Impossible meets Star Trek. That was all I could see when they got their. Oh, that's how I saw it, and so, oh my, yeah. So I overall it was good. It was a good movie. Period. And just watch. We just need to watch it. So, and I was going to say though, so as I've been watching Salon now for a couple of months since I found y'all, and I mean, obviously I found it when we were doing, reviews on Text Trek those couple of times and learned about your channel and everything. I can definitely tell you enjoy entertaining people, and has that been has been entertaining a lifelong passion of yours, or?
Yeah. I appreciate that question. I have not had that question asked. I do. I like to have a good time, and I want people around me, and be it an audience or on the panel or at a game night that I host, I want people to have a good time when they're with me. So, I try to make that happen on the Salon. It comes with goofy videos and trying to steer the conversation in certain ways as the host, and then in my real life, having game nights where you have some good snacks for any kind of eater. And I think I overthink every. In fact, I have a banner back here somewhere from a friend that says "Great minds overthink alike." It's because I overthink all of the details all the time. I want people to have a good time when they're around me, for sure.
I and we do. I mean, I'm always laughing, especially on the Salon, because when and all of the graphics y'all have when you that pop up, like the first time I was like, "What is all this silliness?" But it just makes for a good hour and a half, sometimes two. Yeah, not usually 2 hours, but still,
Yeah, last week went a
of
little
just
long, but ordinarily we found our sweet spot is between 1 and 1.5 hour for sure.
Yeah, for a panel, I agree. I think that's probably a good spot. And I try to do like the one-on-ones about an hour, give or take, and then maybe down 45. But yeah, no, and yeah, see, I knew you had to be an entertainer. I could see you when you were a kid, probably entertaining everybody in the family and whatnot.
They might disagree with that, but attempts were made for sure. Yeah, I was a theater kid in high school for sure. And I do remember very early on, like my dad had, again, I want to say this diplomatically. My dad is funny, but because he's funny, I wanted to be funny. But it took a while for me to learn that his sense of humor is a little mean spirited. I learned that through my teen years. I'm like, oh, he's making fun of people. That's what's happening here. Not to get too deep on the pod early on, but I do remember as a kid when I could make people laugh, it was intoxicating. I was like, oh, they're having a good time. I caused that, and I just really enjoy that feeling. And so it's uh, I've leaned away from being mean spirited, hopefully, but I definitely do still want to uh, bring a lighthearted, humorous vibe to the world around me as best I.
And I think you do. I think you do, from what I can tell. And so, and so what? I don't honestly, I don't know. Other than Salon, what is your, what were you doing? What was the, your day job?
Day-to-day life in my career has been in advocacy and campaigns, electoral speaking. I've worked for the Democratic Party off and on, and presidential campaigns, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That has to be a little, and it has to have some be interesting actually to see behind the scenes of some of the, especially on the political stuff when you're working big campaigns and stuff like that, and what's going on.
Interesting is a great word for it. I've had small roles in several campaigns, several big campaigns. I was a field organizer. I was a regional organizing lead. And then my career progressed and I was the coordinated campaign director for all of the Arizona Democratic Party. That sounds cooler than it actually is. It just means I had to deal with a lot of crazy people with a lot of conflicting needs, and again, needing to be diplomatic in the way that I discuss. A lot of strong personalities on most of my campaigns. These are 14 to 18-hour days, especially the last 3 months of an election. But I've loved my career. The heart of it is meeting people where they're at, trying to bring people together for a common cause. In most cases, for me, it's been, Barack Obama's presidential campaign, or generally voting for, at the Human Rights Campaign, we would endorse pro-equality candidates, that kind of thing. So trying to move the needle in a progressive way as best we can. And right now is a little rough, but we'll come back swinging, I'm sure. And I don't know what my next gig is going to be yet. It might be in the advocacy space. It might not be, but either way, I will keep pushing any way that I can, and certainly vote as progressively as I can.
Well, but luckily you have a salon right now to keep you occupied.
Yes, I joked on our last bonus content, this is all that I have. And then I was like, wait, that sounds much darker than I intended it to. But the salon is the thing that I have consistently right now that I'm working on, and I love it. It's Thursday nights are my favorite night of the week, not just because I get to talk about Star Trek, but I get to do it with my friends that we all met on Trek Twitter of all places, and we're able to come together and have this fun space for a couple of hours each week is really joyful.
And that's my next, actually, that leads me to my next question is, what sparked your interest to get into the Star Trek podcasting world with us and make the salon?
Great question. It sort of happened by accident and incrementally. Trevor and I met via Twitter Spaces. We were hopping on to a Twitter space every week talking about the latest episode. And then we got to talking in the DMs about having our own space so that we could keep the conversation going. Because usually the other one would just go for about an hour, and we're like, well, I have nothing else to do, so let's do our own. And so that just sort of snowballed. Eventually, we're like, oh, let's add a visual component and do it on YouTube. And then we thought, oh, we should maybe not delete them every week, because for a while. Probably the first 6 months or so we were doing, or maybe even longer. When did I go to STLV the first time? 2023. Yeah. So maybe for the first year, really, we were deleting we were self-destructing after every salon. And then eventually we're like, oh, if we're going to build an audience, I mean, to say it that way sounds like we did this purposefully, like we were trying to build a podcast empire. We really weren't, but it was, we met Greg Grunberg at STLV in 2023. He and Ken, who is on the Salon, are good friends and work together at an organization called Talk About It, which talks about epilepsy and some other conditions, helping bring awareness to various aspects of those conditions. And we got to talking about it, and it was Greg who was like, "Oh, why do you delete it?" And I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
because we're unhinged, Greg." That was basically the answer. We had a safe space to have our most unhinged Star Trek opinions, but it just turned into, let's just do it. Let's keep them up. Let's see where this can go. And then, as I do, I start overthinking everything, and then I started thinking about the numbers and like, let's get more subscribers. Let's see where this can go. And so it's not like, how do I build the audience? I need likes to sustain myself. Although it sometimes feels that way, but more of a like, I get a dopamine hit as somebody with ADHD every time I get a subscriber. So I'm just always chasing that high, I guess.
I understand. I get it. My one of the guys who helps me out, I told him one time I was hitting my YouTube studio and just like looking, and he's like, "Stop the studio scrolling." I'm like, "Fine," because when you see that number go up and then it just flatlines for a while, and you're like,
yeah, it's easy to get obsessive about it. And so I try not to. Like right now with nothing else to focus on, I'm like, sure, I'll work on our social content so that I can try and nudge the numbers. But, at the end of the day, we could have one subscriber and we would still do the Salon every week.
"Yep, agreed." And that's, yeah, I admit I have done the doom scroll on subscribers and looking at it, and I'm like, I just got to stop, because if you don't, you'll go crazy real easy. Oh my goodness. So now, since you've been doing the Salon, I know most of the time it's just, the panel talking, but have you had a guest yet, that you would consider, like, what's been your best interview so far?
Well, we've only had 3 so far, so I don't want to throw 2 of them under the bus, but it was definitely, no, they were great. So we've only had 3 interviews so far, but we're looking for more. Getting the feelers out is always challenging because, for some folks in the Trek sphere, some of them are more active right now than others. So it's easier to get a hold of them. We interviewed Aaron Watke from Star Trek Prodigy, the co-executive producer. I just messaged him on social media, and he's a wonderful human being who interacts with fans, which God love him, because like I can only imagine the crazy nonsense that he gets given the crazy nonsense that I sent. So I reached out and we were able to have a conversation with him because as it turned out, we go live about his daughter's bedtime. And so he was able to hop on live, and that was a really fun conversation. And we got to weave all of the panelists into it. And then the other 2 interviews that we've done so far, we had Lori Ulster from Trek Movie, who is just another wonderful human being. I love her podcast with Anthony on Trek Movie. And we also recently had Brian Volkweiss, who's super fun, super funny. He's the CEO of the Nacelle Company. They just launched a new toy action figure line in Trek. And so with both of them, we did pre-recorded video interviews with just Trevor and I for Lori, and then just Will and I for Brian. Trevor was going to be on that, but had some technical issues. And in that instance, Trevor and I are the co-hosts, and I know Will has a special love for Star Trek toys. He has models and has built models ever since he was a kid. So, I wanted to include him in that. If we ever uh, as you've seen on the Salon, the more voices there are, the more chaotic it can be, and the more like the interview with Aaron was wonderful, but it took more prep ahead of time, and who's going to ask what question at what time, and practicing a run through. With fewer voices, I still have a run through document, but we can be a little more loosey goosey with it, and so we'll pull voices based on whoever the guests is, like random, like Matt is our time travel lover. So if we ever had somebody who played, like if we had the guy who played Daniels, for example, I would make special effort to make sure Matt could be a part of that conversation because it ties into his love of that aspect of Trek for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, and you're right. The prep that can go in that is involved with doing a one-on-one interview can take hours, especially if you've got to do research on their history, what they've done, where they're from, you name it. Oh, have they written a book or done XYZ? And that was something I picked up from watching some of the other podcasts and listen to the host. They're like, yeah, that it takes them. There can be a lot of prep work. And then some of their guests sometimes say, well, if you want me to be on this show, then you must do boom, 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 and then we'll let you on. Yeah. Then we'll come on.
I also try to watch, like I watched watched or listened to interviews with each of our guests, just to get a vibe, do a vibe check. Like my sense of humor can be off-putting for some folks. So like, do I need to dial it back with this guest? I have not needed to with our guest thus far, but also I don't want to ask the same question that they get in every interview. It's like at STLV, I understand a fan who doesn't go to STLV every year. I've only been twice so far, but there seems to always be somebody asking a question that a Kate Mulgrew or a Marina Sirtis or whoever has been answering for decades now. It's like, come on, like let's ask something new. Let's get something fresh.
And it's hard because I interviewed John Billingsley a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of my goals, was to try and come up with something that he has not been asked. And when when you've got someone like him who's had a career that long, and especially in the Star Trek world, and has been on umpteen number of podcasts, there's not much that he has not been asked. Now, I did get lucky, and he shared something on our interview that he said he could not recall sharing on any others. Was in there's a scene when he was in hibernating, and I can't remember the episode. I'm not going to even think about what I just meant, but when Cutler and T'Pol come to wake him up, and he lifts up the covers, he did that as a joke that they were saying that Travis was underneath there.
Yes, I remember that. I think that was 2 days and 2 nights, because it was wasn't it? Or no, not 2 days. There was some kind, or no, maybe it was, because it was some kind of shore leave, and Travis got sick because they gave him some sort of inoculation that he ended up being allergic to. I think it was 2 days and 2 nights, because he's like, while they're on the surface, now's the time for me to hibernate. That was so funny. John Billingsley, I remember, this is the opposite of what I was saying earlier. I think when I watched it when I was younger, he reminded me, I thought there was too much of this is the Neelix of this show, who I then and now find annoying. That is an in-universe criticism. Ethan Phillips is a wonderful actor and hilarious. I love some of his other stuff for sure. And he has some great stuff in Voyager for sure. But I think with Phlox, I thought it was a little too close when I was younger, and I thought like, oh, this is just the Neelix of Enterprise. Now on our rewatch, I'm like, John is act in circles around some of his co-stars, and when they don't give him a whole lot to do. Him and Jolene are incredible. And Linda, when she actually has something to do, wonderful. And all of them are, I think all of them are more capable than the material that they got. But Billingsley definitely stands out. And that episode in particular, he is hysterical. Is so good.
Oh yeah, he was. And then it was when we were talking, and he was, how he always would try and give suggestions to the writers and be like, well, let me do this or let me do that. And like he said, Picardo would say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And like, sure, Bob. And, if he wanted to do something, they're like, no. And that was in Doctor's Orders. And he made a comment, and he was in the interview. It was so funny. He goes, I wanted to walk in and turn, and something on the other side of the room got knocked off. And insinuate. And they're like, no, not going to do that.
His toenails aren't the only large appendage.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, he was, oh my God, he was unhinged, but it was funny unhinged. So, and there was one point when I asked him, so what would it like to work with Scott Bakula? And I'm pretty sure my face, I was just frozen at first, because he goes, he's a bleep, bleep. I'm like, what? And then he goes, oh no, he's the nicest effing guy on the planet. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, did I just step into a hornet's nest here or something?
It would be hilarious. I think about the Salon, and hopefully this comparison won't sound insulting, but I do wonder when I do interviews, how hilarious it would be if, like, on the Salon with our less than 200 subscribers, if we got some kind of scoop like that. Like, what a ridiculous place for John Billingsley to come out as a Scott Bakula hater, right? Just like a random podcast interview some days, like, you know what? I'm going to tell you what I actually think.
And that was kind of how he started it. And for a second, and I'm just like, holy. And then he, got serious. But I thought he was as serious could be. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, it freaked me the F out. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, he was so much fun. He's very passionate about everything. So yeah, if y'all ever get him on, I think he would be great to have on the Salon, because y'all's back and forth would be phenomenal.
Yeah, we will definitely.
Oh my God.
And now's a good plug. They just did Trek Talks 4, which was a wonderful event. The Hollywood Food Coalition.
It's a great event. And so I gave a little here and there where I could on that. And I streamed it for almost all day. I think I had it on my TV, as I was walking around doing other things, editing a video, all that stuff. Just, I need to go rewatch a couple of the panels. Like, I really wanted to go see the Voyager one. I did not. I think I was doing something that got away. So luckily it's on YouTube and I can go rewatch it.
Yeah, they were all really fun. I had it on in the background, and I weaved in and out a little bit just because I get a little antsy with my ADHD just sitting in front of a screen. But they were all wonderful panels, really interesting, really fun. And, they raised, I think they hit their goal of at least $50,000 for the Hollywood Food Coalition. Yeah. And Rod Roddenberry himself is matching at least 30,000 of that. So really they've raised over 75,000.
Yeah, the last number I saw right at the end, it was 77,000, something, so almost 80 grand, and they may have gotten it by now with, after show contributions. I haven't looked. Well, so now you've mentioned something. So you said you've been to STLV, twice now? Did you go last year? Or
the last 2 years, 2023 was my first STLV. It was actually the first time I met Trevor and Matt and Ken in person. So that was lovely. And then we also went last year. I think the same crew went last year. Yeah. And hopefully this year it's going to be I don't think Ken's going to be able to make it this year. Um, my participation is tentative, a strong tentative given my current work situation, but I think Will's going to be able to join us this year, and Joanne is coming as well. So we'll have a strong contingent for sure.
Oh, so other than STLV, have you gone to any of the other like the San Francisco conventions
Not
or any of
yet.
that type of stuff?
I moved away from San Francisco shortly before they started doing that one, and so I think it's something we might do in the future. You know, as the salon grows, I think, you know, I have this pie in the sky idea that will monetize eventually. You know, we do, of course, have a Patreon, and thank you for being a Patreon supporter. But, you know, other than defraying the costs of the salon, um, we're not bringing in top tier salaries or anything like that. But eventually, as we grow, if we monetize, I think something that we would want to do beyond, you know, defraying actual costs of the salon would be, the first thing I want to do is help cover people's our panelists Paramount Plus subscription, so that they always have access to the trek that we're talking about, and then you know, help with travel expenses for those kinds of things where we can. But that's unlikely, and if does happen years from now, probably. It's the current dream of the salon. My current dream is to be able to pay for our panelists to get to various conventions, to, you know, not only be there and have fun, but also cover it for the salon, maybe move in that direction a little bit, but more just have fun with each other.
And that's where I want to go. And it's just going to be a while, a long while, because it takes this a long time to do that.
Yeah.
But
we're now
and I've done
almost 3 years in. A little about 2, maybe a little less than 2 of like actually trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you're gonna get. We'll all get there. We'll all get there. He's got to keep working, and as I asked, I was in a Zoom because I'm on a Delta Flyer, and we were talking one time with Garrett, and I made a comment about start my own podcast and so on and so on. And I said, I heard you made a comment about that it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's basically a part-time job for me. It's, I think a conservative estimate is probably 10 hours a week minimum. Well, it depends on the week. It depends on, you know, things that are happening, but they're the inner workings of a podcast in the salon. So I do like the social content because I want to make sure that stuff is going out to our channels throughout the week to help build audience, remind audience that we exist. There's creating the visuals for, you know, the thumbnail that goes out with YouTube. Then there's the visuals that we'll use in the episode, video clips, that kind of thing. It all takes it takes a good amount of time, and so I've just structured my Fridays and Mondays around that for now. But it's something I chose to do because I also, on top of just loving Star Trek and wanting this to do well, and wanting to put out a good product, so to speak. I don't like thinking of us as a product, but like I do want what we put out to be of quality, even though I'm just a guy with a laptop, you know, doing my best with Canva and Streamlabs, you know. But it's been a lot of fun. It is a lot of work. It is a part-time job, but I enjoy it. And it's also, you know, we recently switched different streaming systems to save a little bit of money. And our new system is more complicated, but I'm really enjoying it because it's like, oh, I'm learning how to do editing and checking sound quality and, optimizing hashtags and like that I never thought I would ever care about. But it's become something that's interesting that I can put to work for my love of Star Trek. So it's been fun.
And this is fun. I mean, yes, it's work and, editing and trying to figure out all the stuff you got to add in and cutting stuff out and what stays and what goes.
Why?
Because, like you said,
I know I did this right. Why isn't it uploading? And then, I didn't click the thing. Or
well, exactly. Or we've started episode reviews, and I was finishing up the first one Saturday, editing it, and I get till the very end, and I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't record an outro. I didn't say anything. I said, "Okay, we're done." To the lady, the woman who was with me doing the stuff, I said, "Okay, well, we're good. So we'll now start the next one." I thought I was done with the edit, and now I've got to cut that, make an actual exit for the whole thing, and it's gonna be a hard cut, but whatever. But I'm just like, oh my God, why did I do that? Because I was moving on to the next episode, and yeah. So it's those little, and they're little things you think, okay, I'll do that, or I'll do this, and then you're like, oh crap, I forgot I got to do that.
Whoops.
Yeah, exactly. And then I need to re-record the intro because I was like, for whatever reason, I was like stiff as a board when I was doing it. So I have, so we're getting to some of the nitty gritty of your Star Trek history and what you like and don't like and all that stuff. And honestly, what first drew you to Star Trek?
Ooh, that is a good question. Some of my earliest memories are watching Treks. I don't know the genesis of it. I know I watched a lot of the original cast movies in Next Generation, and I really enjoyed. I think I liked the sci-fi aspect of it generally, but also, I was a ship nerd. Like, oh, this is really cool. The phasers and all of that nonsense. The action got me, and then when Deep Space Nine premiered, I remember my brother and sister were not big fans of Trek like I was, but there was an opportunity for us to stay up late and watch TV. So we watched the first hour, super good, and then my dad was like, "Well, it's your bedtime." I was like, "Oh, come on!" Please, we had to beg him to let us watch the second half, and he relented, but I was hooked from as early as I can remember. Yeah, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. I didn't watch all of as it aired. I think the first couple of years we didn't have UPN, but then towards the end of its run, I was able to watch it, and then Enterprise when it was actually on in real time.
Exactly. Yeah, I was TNG, and then Enterprise Voyager when I got access to UPN finally, because I didn't have access to Deep Space Nine, so I didn't get to watch DS9 until it was on Netflix. Really, yeah, it's just the way it worked out. But
I had Deep Space Nine VHS tapes, and I would record the episodes as they were airing on our local channel in Utah. It was, and then I think I got the Columbia House when that used to be a thing. It was like the first 3 are free, and then only $19.99 a month. And then, like, I'm a child, so I got the 3 free ones, and then I canceled it over the phone because you had to call and actually talk to a human back then. Nightmare. But
I remember I didn't do it for the movies, but I did like the CDs and stuff like that. You get the 10 free, and then you got to cancel. Oh my
10 for
God.
a penny.
Yes. Yeah, I so remember that. I probably still owe them for something, and they just, who knows?
They will never see that money.
They will never see it. That's right. So what was so it sounds like DS9 might have been your favorite series, possibly? or one of
Yeah,
them.
it's the one that I go back to most. Kira is my favorite character in all the franchise, and I think my thing with Deep Space Nine is it's truly an ensemble, but you still have an incredible number one in Avery Brooks with Captain Sisko. His dynamic with Kira was just incredible, and seeing her arc throughout the development for both of those characters just incredible. And they're also like they're the recurring characters. Like I love Garrick, the that he embraced the queerness of that character, and that he found, oh, I want to have sex with Julian. That's this character's vibe, and like was able to play that in a way that ran on TV in the 90s is just incredible. Jadzia is such a wonderful character. Her arc with what happened to Terry is nonsense, but overall, like Deep Space Nine just had like even beyond the war stories and the longer arc and cool ship battles that I of course loved. The deep allegory. My favorite episode is The Darkness and the Light. It was written by Brian Fuller, and Nana just acts her full out in that episode. I personally believe Nana Visitor is one of the best actors, period, but definitely in the franchise. And what she was doing with Kira was revolutionary for the time, for being a woman in the industry. She talks about it a lot in her book Open a Channel, which is wonderful, and I highly suggest people read. But
I've got it. I'm reading it.
Yeah, it's incredible. She does an excellent job of telling a story, but also shepherding stories from all of these women in the franchise that she's interviewed. Highly recommend. But she was just awesome. In that episode, she has a monologue where she's just laying on a bio bed after being injured, and to just be laying there with not being able to move around, like it's just her face. It's just her and her body telling the story of of her first mission in the Shakar resistance cell after two of her resistance cell mates were murdered. Like the pain, it's just incredible. And then my other favorite episode is this campy, it's called The Assignment, where Keiko is taken over by a Pa Wraith. It is campy as hell, and at the end she gets electrocuted and she's just like, it is so funny. It's so good. It works. Rosalind Chow is incredible. Like the multifaceted nature of all of their characters. I think that's what gets me back to Deep Space Nine more than any other, because I love all of Trek, but name a series, there are always one or two characters that have the majority of the focus, and Deep Space Nine, they had breathing room for everybody.
Well, I say they spread it out. Every character at some point had their own little arc or of some form or fashion, in my opinion. Like we just got finished watching their Delta Flyers just did the review of the first part, and I should remember the series episode, but it's when Garrick is the Obsidian Order and the Tal Shiar are about to start preparing to go attack the founders.
Yeah, with Inabrin Tain.
Oh, yes. And I hadn't watched that one in a while, and after listening to Robbie and Garrett and Terry give their analysis of it, I was like, man, that actually, it was a good episode. And they had they really did have a lot of good episodes on that show. Some, honestly, like you were saying, I think for me personally, some of the best in the series. The ones that were, was it In the Pale Moonlight and Far Beyond the Stars with Avery were just, That man can act. That man can act.
Duet. There's so many, there are so many incredible episodes in Deep Space Nine that it's constantly rewatchable for me.
Oh yeah, and I agree with you on that. And so I was going to ask, I'm going to give you one or two more Trekkie questions. You know, honestly, what would you say to someone who says that Star Trek is, not relevant anymore?
Delete your account.
Or for being outdated? Yeah.
Speak to no one else. No. The political answer is to try and find common ground. Like, what makes you say that? To ask probing questions. But if I get to the point of trying to convince, maybe a slightly controversial answer, but I sometimes wonder if there's truth to that statement with some of the decisions, some of the stories that have been told in recent years, in two particular but popular outings of the franchise. But I will say the most relevant Trek recently to me has been Star Trek Discovery. I think their way of breaking through the Trek formula and telling stories in a different way, more emotional stories. Once you get past the these are galactic stakes again, Michael again. I get it, but that's the whole point of their story. Is it's a story about things happening to this person and the people around her. So get over it. And the exploration of what it means to be human in Star Trek Discovery, and to have trauma that you need to deal with and be able to find joy and not close yourself off. I think that's certainly relevant. Some of the, I love all Trek. I think I'm excited for what Strange New Worlds is going to do, but season 3, but I think in seasons 1 and 2, there are a lot of fun episodes, but I think there's a lot of surface level allegory happening there. I think about season 1 episode, I forget the name of it, but the gist of it was child labor is bad. Okay, well, in this society that you've just shown us, I'm going to sound like a monster for a second. One child is consenting to torture himself so that this great machine can work.
Oh, I remember that episode.
The way that they set up this episode, one child is sacrificed. He chooses to sit in that chair. He realizes what's going to happen and does it anyway. And I don't know what they were trying to get us to glean from that. Child labor is bad, sure, but the execution was just wonky with what I don't know they were trying to tell us. And I think they've shied away from the opportunity of highlighting queerness in the future. I think they have ignored some of their own characters to the detriment of the show, in my opinion, so that they can play with original series characters. Because it seems to me, again, I love Strange New Worlds, I love all Star Trek, but I don't think sometimes I wonder, do you want to do Strange New Worlds, or do you want to do a backdoor reboot? Because it feels like they just want to play with Kirk and Spock. That's why is Kirk there so much? Paul Wesley's great. I'm enjoying his rendition, but the one exception I will give them is La'an. They've done a wonderful arc with La'an. They're one of their few original characters that has had room to grow, and they have, with Una and Rebecca Remain, they have the most seasoned actor on that show is barely utilized. And we keep being told that Una is this incredible first officer, and they don't show it. So I'm hopeful in season 3 that they'll do more showing and less telling. They'll do more deep allegory. They won't shy away from the queerness. They won't shy away from actually confronting fascism, because it's been, the last season, the Klingon warmonger was just this jolly good fellow, and they decided to leave it open-ended to why M'Benga killed him. And like, your doctor murdering a Klingon ambassador on the flagship is a powerful moment that they put it behind glass and they shy away from it. It all just feels so surface level to me, and it's enjoyable, but the stuff that they're doing with Uhura is wonderful. What they're doing with La'an is wonderful. I like having a bad captain. Like Christopher Pike, Anson Mount's a wonderful actor. This is in-universe criticism of Pike as a captain. I like that he's wishy-washy and like not great. He's indecisive and makes mistakes, and that's not something that we see much, other than Archer just being. So I don't remember the question, and I went into a very critical mode. So hopefully I haven't turned off the entire audience. I love it. I'm excited for more of it. I just hope more deeper storytelling from them, because I know that they're capable of it.
And I'm right here thinking about everything you just said, and
how correct
I see what you're. I see what you're talking about, because it makes me. They really, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Strange New Worlds, just like you, but it is, now that you say that, it seems more like just a backdoor way of redoing TOS,
And I'm on record as saying I do not want that. We like Ethan Peck is wonderful. We already know so much about Spock. Seeing how we got there is interesting, so I'm liking what they're doing there, but more of Kirk and Spock. It was really cool to see when they met. Seeing that moment, absolutely. Little touches here and there are fine, but like Kirk has shown up now in at least 3 episodes and 2 10-episode seasons. Why is he there?
Well, him and La'an had a whole episode together,
and I enjoyed that episode.
I did too.
I especially the Pelia, adding Carol Kane.
Oh what my god, delight. She's hilarious!
What a delight! And that they are the ones that nudged her into engineering. Like I love that kind of thing. You get if you get in there and explore your characters in a more organic setting. Just love, like, what does this look like? An engineer's engineering place? Like it. She is so delightful. That was wonderful. I don't mean to sound, but when they do it right, it's wonderful. And then when they waste an episode saying maybe murder is bad, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like
I am looking forward to this season, especially just what I mean. I know we got those little clips, but the fact that I cannot wait to see the whole the telephone episode.
All her antique telephones.
Yes. Oh gosh. Okay, we could talk for hours on that, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask my standard last question for everybody: is what Star Trek technology do you wish existed today?
Oh, I want to say transporter, but the way it is understood in the franchise, it murders you. It murders you and it copies you. And I don't know what happens to your soul. So I'm not going to say the transporter. That needs to be retconned at some point, by the way, Star Trek powers it be. But it's the replicator, right? Like taking and making apples. It's pretty good for, right? So, yeah, the replicator, being able to not just, I want a 3D printer so bad. I do not have the money for it. But when I do, I keep seeing all of these cool little trinkets that people are making in like storage solutions for their bits and bobs or whatever. But also, I saw somebody do half ships that they put on sort of a glossy thing. So behind them, they have what it looks like in the observation lounge of the ships that have the ship models. It looks like, and one that I saw, it looks so. It was 3D, of course, so it protruded out, but the material that this creator put it on made the ship reflect, so it looks like you can see the whole thing from certain angles. So rad. So I want a replicator to have. I want better furniture and exotic meals and the right tool that I need that I can then just put back in the replicator so that I don't have clutter everywhere. I want a replicator.
Oh, that's a good one on the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you need that 10 millimeter socket that never is there.
Yes. I think about this a lot with like community aid and mutual aid and like our capitalist society teaches us, oh, well, you should have everything on your own. Like, don't meet your neighbors. Like, I don't need a table saw, but if I could replicate one and then put it back in there when I was done, wonderful. Like, because I have had some projects like, man, if I had a table saw, I'd have this cool frame around some of my art right now. But like buying one, yeah. So I need to meet my neighbors who have table saws or have a replicator.
Mm-hmm. And just think, like you said, all the foods that you can make for yourself and everybody else.
Yes. From anything.
That's right. Well, Stan, thank you for coming on tonight. And this was fun. This was a fun talk. And we just get to talk about Trek and all the above. And I enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Me too. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And final plug for @Salon Trek.
Oh, yes.
In all of the places @Salon Trek. Anywhere you care to listen to a podcast or watch it on YouTube and all of the socials. So thank you very much, Chris.
Yes. You're welcome. And I have to say, I will plug as well. Watch the Salon, join their Patreon. It's well worth the money. You have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.
And greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, and welcome to the Transporter Room. Today, I'm beyond excited to be joined by Cirroc Lofton, a multifaceted talent whose contributions to television and podcasting have left an indelible mark on audiences around the globe. Best known for his heartfelt portrayal of Jake Sisko in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Lofton brought nuance and relatability to one of science fiction's most beloved characters, earning him a lasting place in the hearts of fans. From his early beginnings as a child actor to his dynamic roles in The Hoop Life, Soul Food, and beyond, Lofton's career reflects a deep passion for storytelling and a remarkable ability to connect with viewers. Today, Lofton continues to inspire through his engaging podcast, The Seventh Rule, where he explores the Star Trek universe with fellow enthusiasts, offering fresh perspectives and heartfelt reflections. A charismatic speaker and cherished convention guest, he brings warmth, humor, and authenticity to every interaction. Please join us in celebrating Cirroc Lofton, a true luminary whose brilliance shines both on and off the screen. So without further ado, let's beam him in. Hey, Cirroc, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Chris. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Thank you for coming on the show and doing this for me today.
Well, thank you for the warm welcome here at the Transporter Room.
Oh, thank you.
It's nice to hear my resume read off.
Yeah, when I did an interview with Connor and Dom, Connor said, "You've taken a page out of Dominic's book of doing intros." I'm like, yeah, kind of, a little bit.
It's good.
But hey, I just want to let everybody know. I just want to let you know that it has been a joy to work with you on the Seventh Rule and to get to actually meet you back at the convention in Dallas last year. You know, it was a blast.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
oh,
it was
thank
fun.
yeah.
It
I
was
mean,
fun meeting you too, man. It's always good when we get together and meet in person and you know get to
oh
have
yeah.
drinks, share laughs.
Oh, I know, man. I wish you could have. I would have loved for you to be able to make it to dinner with us that night, but I know you were kind of busy and had some other things going on. So it'd have been fun. But hey, next time, maybe in
Yeah.
Chicago when we're up there.
Chicago
If you
coming
know,
up. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I like to start off with like background. We get to the Star Trek stuff in a little bit here because everybody knows about all the Star Trek things. But I just was wondering, did you always have a passion for performing when you were growing up, or did it just kind of just find you?
Um, a passion. Yeah, I think it just found me. I was selected to do this play, and I, I think you realize you're good at something, but based on the feedback and based on your own personal feelings. So when you know you're good at something, regardless of what that thing is, something clicks inside of you like, hey, I'm good at this, and I think I'm better than the average person at doing this particular thing, whatever that is. And for me, that was acting and being on stage. So performing was something that I felt naturally good at. It didn't take much effort for me to both know the memorization of the lines and choreography of however the scene was going to play out. So that's really how I just kind of stumbled into it by figuring out I'm pretty good at it.
Hey, that's all that matters. You were good, and you are great. And so, um, can you share with us what your first job or your first job was, your actual acting job was?
You mean getting paid?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
The
okay.
paid job, the
That's
first paid
yeah,
job.
paid job. Yeah. My first job was for the United States Army, and I was playing this. I was a kid at the time. Obviously, I was 10 years old, and yeah, I was playing. This kid growing up who eventually would join the military for the army, and it was one of those "be all that you can be." One of those moments back in the day when they had that as their advertising campaign.
Oh my god, I'm gonna have to see if I can find that video. It's got to be on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
that's
my.
the magic of YouTube. Everything still exists. But yeah, that was my first job and my first audition, my first job. It was all of the above, and then just kept kind of going from there. Um, as a child actor, just kept going from there.
Cool. So, as a child actor, were you able to stay in public school, or did you have to get tutors on the set? How does that work?
Yeah, you get an option actually. They gave me an option. They said I could be tutored permanently. When I did Deep Space Nine, I could have been essentially just enrolled in tutoring exclusively getting schooled on the set,
Mm-hmm.
but I chose to do the option of balancing public school and working at the same time. So I was in public school. I was enrolled in public school while I was working.
Oh man, that's got to be kind of. I mean, I would think it'd be kind of fun, but also I'm just like, man, I wonder what the kids were like when they finally realized, oh man, he's on DS9. He's a.
Yeah, wasn't that cool at the time, I can say. Star Trek and sci-fi culture has become more mainstream and more popular than it was, I would say, during the time in the 90s, early 90s when I started to get involved. There was still a little bit of a uh, stigmatism behind the quote unquote nerd sci-fi franchise culture, and so there was that stigmatism that didn't allow for people to kind of openly identify as a Star Trek fan in that kind of way. So actually, I got more ridicule than praise from my side of the world because I was in a urban side of town here in Los Angeles, and the people there were too cool for Star Trek, so they made fun of it.
Well, that's not the case anymore, I don't think. I really think, sci-fi has become, well, not just popular, it's become mainstream, it's become popular. We had shows out there that dealt with it all the time, like the Big Bang Theory and some others who made it cool to be a sci-fi kid and all the other stuff like that. So, that's good. Um,
Well,
so
there is also, the thing about the way time has passed, from my observation, is a lot of those people that were Star Trek fans at that time have gone on to become successful professional adults in all spheres of the world, from teaching to computers to science. We just have all kinds of people represented in various workplaces. And so, because of that, um, you see the successes of people that have invested in Star Trek that actually has translated to personal successes in their lives. And I think that has also made it more so popular because people say, well, if this guy's, the guy who started this tech company or this guy who did this, and he's also a Star Trek guy, then it shows that, the principles, the philosophy behind it actually can translate to success in somebody's own personal life.
agreed. I mean, I would say that a good majority of, for example, everybody that works at NASA have been a Star Trek fan of some form or fashion, or a sci-fi fan in some form or fashion. With, again, most of them being Star Trek, and so, and I mean, how I can't even count probably a number of, we've had astronauts on the show multiple times. So yeah, it's made a difference. And so that's what's so cool, that how, this series has led to so many different things in life. And we'll get farther into that a little bit later in the show because that's farther down my list. But I did want to touch on some of the stuff I learned at the conventions from, just listening to your panel, which was, I'm going to say this: anybody that goes to a convention that Cirroc is talking at, go to his panel. It is phenomenal. It was great. But one thing that I learned was, I didn't know you owned a restaurant and a bar at one time in your life. I was like, that honestly was just I kind of got a chuckle. I might have been sitting by Ryan. I don't remember or released. I might have been sitting near them that time, but I just got to laugh because I'm like, wait a second. He's in the restaurant business, just like his, on-screen grandfather was or was.
Yeah, a lot of parallels like that in my life. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know if it's art imitating life or life imitating art, or which comes first. But I guess in this particular case, they wrote that for the character, and then I ended up living it out in real life. Um, and I studied business when I was at UCLA. I was a business econ major. Um, so half economics, half business, and some of the things that I learned, or what I really wanted to do with the education, was to be in business, to some degree or another, and I didn't know what business that was, but I wanted to be a businessman. And so, you know, when the opportunity came with my now ex-wife to, you know, get into the restaurant business and venture into that, I thought it was something that I wanted to do and be involved with, and um, so then I set path on doing that, and it was very fun. It was a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I have my hat goes off to everybody in the food service industry. Everybody works hard from back behind in the kitchen all the way to the front of the house. Uh, there is no moment of just relaxation, really. I mean, if you're busy, obviously, and you're always preparing for the next day. You're always, there's just never a dull moment. And I like the entertainment aspect of it. So the part of it that I liked the most was actually playing the role of Quark behind the bar, and getting it inside good information from people, and playing matchmaker.
Oh, that's so funny. Yes. Oh my God, Quark. Oh my God, that was I don't think I knew that part, but that's a good add. That's something good to add to that. Oh my God. Um, and something else, so I knew you went to UCL, I knew you went to college, but I forgot that it was a business econ degree. And I don't know, I was kind of wondering if it was a history degree because you, my friend, were a pretty big history buff from what I remember us talking about during one of our meetings but last year. I just, wow, you were rattling off just facts and things that I didn't even know. Um, and was that just something that you just picked up because just, I hate to say randomly, but what got you into become like really in depth into history?
Well, I can say that first of all, I had some really good teachers at the schools that I went to. Um, I had guys like Mr. Shackman, who was at my junior high school. Um, I had a professor named Mr. Safier at Fairfax High School, and they made it fun for me to listen to history, and they made the subject fun to listen to and learn from because they were themselves good personalities, and they had the ability to make things interesting, by the way they would talk. And so I think that's the beginning of my interest in it, listening to those classes and having those great teachers. And then I began to have a curiosity about my own origin and history, about myself and where, my parents' origin and background. And so I started to dig into that kind of a history, and that led to other kinds of things like biblical history. And so one thing always kind of leads to another, and you just keep going down the the rabbit hole until you can't take anymore.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I enjoyed listening to your history, just that discussion we had. It was pretty eye opening. So I thank you for that. um, so now we kind of get into a little bit more of the fun stuff, the podcast, conventions, and your Star Trek history real quick here. You know, I know some of the actors, did the conventions while they were working and after. So when did you start? Did you do it while you were still on the show, or was it after the show ended when you finally got into the convention scene?
It was as the show was going on. I wasn't on the first go around, I guess. It took me a couple of years before I actually got into the convention scene. Um, maybe after my second, but during the second year, I think I did the first convention. Yeah, I mean, it was like a whole nother world that I wasn't really aware that existed, for the
Hmm.
fan base. And you think you go to work, you work on the set and you finish and you're done and you go home. And Star Trek is one of the few franchises out there that has this celebration of it that happens on a, almost weekly event somewhere in the country or in the world. Um, and yeah, people are celebrating, and I think that's one of the great phenomenons of the show. And I think that again lends itself to the idea that the value systems that they talk about are lifestyle choices. And if you have those value systems, you will be celebrating the lifestyle that you live in the way of getting together with like-minded people to enjoy the thing you love.
True. And I can only imagine what it was like, being a young adult doing your first conventions, and what those experiences were like, especially having that interaction with the fans for the first time. I can't even fathom that, what it was like when they all start coming to get your signature. And I mean, I know when we were talking, your hand has to get tired after a while.
Yeah, I mean that was back in the day. It's not so tiring anymore, man. We'll see. But yes, there was a time when it was long lines and you would get tired. My first convention, as a matter of fact, was like that, and that was here in Pasadena, California, at a creation convention. And I remember going to that and saying, "Damn, all of these people are like here dressed up and in makeup." And and I'm like, "Wow, this is crazy. This is unbelievable." Um, and then they said, "Well, you're going to be signing." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, cool. Where do Then I saw the line, and I was the longest line I've ever had. And I was like, "What the hell is all those people here for?" They're like, "They're here for you. They're waiting in line for you." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is gonna be a long day." And I remember signing and signing and signing for hours and hours and hours, and I couldn't like crack the line, you know? I couldn't crack the line, and eventually, and for some reason they had me sitting outside. I don't know why, but at this particular convention, I was sitting outside signing. I think probably because the line was too big, so they had me sitting outside, and uh, and so it got dark. It was dark. It was starting to get dark, and it was becoming, it was nighttime. And for everybody out there that doesn't know, the convention usually ends around 5 or 6. And I think it was 7:30, and the line is still, I might have gone halfway through the line, and they cut off the people. They cut the line, and I was like, hey, I can't even see anymore. It's dark out here, and and the convention's over. So, it ended an hour ago. So, like, I'm gonna be done signing, and I remember that they cut somebody off and said, "Say, Cirroc has to go." I'm a kid, mind you, at this point. I'm only 15 years old or whatever. So I'm like, I gotta go home and eat and go to, get ready for the next day. I might have to work the next day. I don't know. But But yeah, somebody was mad about getting cut off, and that guy rushed the table and like tried to, I don't know, grab me or something. But yeah, so they tackled him. It was like a really kind of a miniature traumatizing experience for my first convention as a kid to have this grown guy just cussing at me for, "I've been waiting all day for you," and I felt bad for everybody who was waiting all that time. But I don't know. I'm not gonna stay
Yeah.
there till midnight.
No, 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 not at all.
So I,
Yeah.
I did my best, but somebody was mad, and so that guy, the first person that got cut off, attacked me. That was my first convention. Then I stopped doing them for a while. I said, I think I'm gonna.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd gone back. I don't know if I would have ever gone back. Oh my
Uh,
God.
but honestly, never been attacked since. Never really had bad experience with any of the fans. It was just that one guy that one time. Uh, and it's
He was
funny because
probably.
yeah, it's funny because I ran into the guy who stopped him recently. It was like 2 years ago. I saw him at Creation in Vegas, and he says to me, the guy now is old because I was 15. So this was like 30 years ago, right? And the guy now he's has a cane and he's an older man with a great beard. And he was wearing a biker vest, and he looked like a badass guy, a pretty tough guy. And he walks up to me and he says, "Do you remember me?" And I looked at him. I was like, "You look familiar, but I don't remember." He says, "I'm the guy that stopped the other guy who tackled you. I was standing next to you when you were signing, and when he lunged towards you, I pushed him back." And I was like, "Oh man, thanks for thanks for doing that for me." 30 years ago. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Ooh, no, yeah. That would not be fun, especially at 15. So
Yeah.
I'm glad he protected you, and I'm glad you came back eventually to the convention scene.
Yeah, I did, and
No,
I haven't had bad experience since that.
yeah.
That was just one guy who really got upset and was blown off steam. But for the 99.9% of the other Star Trek fans out there, they're extremely sweet and gracious and generous and polite. They've written me wonderful letters. They've given me amazing gifts. I have some of those gifts behind me, including this. And I mean, just people are just amazing, and the time that they take out to be thoughtful, to be concerned about my well-being is amazing. So I love all the fans, and I enjoy going to the conventions more than ever.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and we enjoy having you there. Believe me. um, so we're gonna get real quick into the podcast. I know you. I hate to say you probably talked about it a million times, but about the seventh rule and how that came about real quick. And I've heard some rumors that at the beginning of the show, somebody didn't actually watch all the episodes that they were talking about.
Hmm, yeah, I heard those rumors too, actually. Yeah, I was I was a reluctant podcaster. I wasn't really sure about the podcasting space. I didn't know if it was something I wanted to get into. I wasn't sure how it worked. I had heard people doing it. I wasn't, uh, I didn't understand that it could also include visuals and not just audio. So my understanding of podcasts was limited when I first got into it because I used to think of podcasts as something you listen to on your iPod, right? And and so in my brain, a podcast was directly connected to an iPod, and so obviously that's a narrow, way of looking at things now. It seems easier. It seems obvious in hindsight for me now, but at that time, not being familiar with the space, I thought it was an audio only thing that you listen to on those devices, and so I didn't see the growth in the space, which became, the Joe Rogan experience and all of the above, where it's much more dynamic than that. And so my understanding was limited. And so when I was first approached by it, I was really reluctant by it. Like, what are we going to be doing exactly? And I don't, audio only. And what are we going to be talking about? And is there even an interest in watching Star Trek with people or, and all of those questions, I had, and Aaron Eisenberg, my late great partner, he was like, just trust me, It's going to be great. It takes a long time. It takes a while to build up your base and to build up your platform. But, after a year or two, I'm like, a year or two. And here we
He
are.
almost lost you right there.
Yeah, exactly. I thought this was a fast commitment, a year or two. And I'm like, oh my God. And so, yeah, here we are 6 years later, 500 episodes in,
Hmm.
it's been a lot. So, um, yeah, I'm glad I was talked into it by Aaron. He used reverse psychology on me. It was very smart of him to do. He appealed to my defiance. And what he did was he said, "Yeah, I heard that I know you're a hermit, Cirroc, and you don't like to be out in public, but we should do a podcast." And I'm like, a hermit? I didn't even hear the podcast part. I just heard that. I
That's
was,
funny.
I was like, who's saying I'm a hermit? Is that what the going analysis of me is, that I'm hiding from everyone. I'm not hiding from anybody. I'm willing to be out there. So that's basically what it came down to.
That's cool. And I have gone back. I've gone back and start and just kind of watch some of the older episodes to see how it's progressed, and it has progressed, as you said, a lot since the beginning. And I didn't realize that free for alls and things left unsaid were not something that was a part of the original, you know, theme of the channel. What what inspired the creating of the free for all and actually getting like people like us, your fans, to join in and review the episodes with y'all?
Well, Ryan and I thought that it would be good to engage with everybody and hear what everyone's opinions and thoughts are. I think it's more of a conversation than it is us trying to just lecture to people about what things are. It's a conversation. And it's also, Star Trek is an observation, and just like observations, people see different things, and well, I was watching the third baseman, and you were looking at the outfielder, and it's like we're seeing the same game, but we're observing different things, and um, and sometimes we all may observe the same things, but I think the nuances in what people bring to their perspective is also important, because I think everyone has their own life experiences that they look through the lens of. And because of that, you're going to get different perspective. You're going to get people who see it from um, their own personality point of view, and that is as whatever they identify as. And so that's going to be the lens that they see things through, and therefore they'll have a completely unique, sometimes, observation or perspective or analysis or point to make or something you can derive from an episode. And I think that's what makes Star Trek amazing. I think because it can appeal to so many different people who can extract and extrapolate, what they want to use as something that's valuable to them.
Exactly. Well, and I'm not going to, name the episode or anything like that, but all I can say from my personal experience, our most recent recording we did, I was iffy about actually coming on because it is a subject that I was like, yeah, I don't really want to get into it. But my reasoning for doing this is I wanted to hear the other members' perspective about that topic. And I was glad I did, because it really, yeah, the most recent one was a great one. They're all good, but this one is exactly like you said. I wanted to hear someone else's opinions and perspectives on it. So yeah, that has been good. And if you accidentally or something say that I did not say Shatner. I said Kirk overacts. So if you say Kirk overacts, you will get a talking to from Walter Koenig.
Yeah, Walter.
I
Uh,
was
Salty
I was
Walter.
not expecting that day because I was, and all of you guys knew was going on. I'm just sitting there like, okay, I guess I stepped in it and didn't realize it.
Well,
Not badly, but
we can bust, we can bust each other's chops every once in
oh
a
yeah,
while, and it's always done out of fun. But
oh it was.
ultimately, the real thing that I think Star Trek is what makes it a good thing is when you approach it from a perspective of non-judgmental. If you can be non-judgmental, if you can accept people for who they are and what they are, and move on from there and get to problem solving and working towards, the betterment of people, then I think that's what we stand for at Star Trek. So even on our show, we might disagree, we might bust your chops, and we might have a laugh, but ultimately nobody's judging anybody for their
Correct.
perspective and for what they
Mhm.
believe and see. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I just was sitting there like, oh, okay. I
Now,
was like,
now, Walter likes giving people a hard time. That's he loves doing that.
oh, it was, as somebody
Well,
told me one time in the live chat, hey, if you can get a talking town to by Walter, that's awesome.
yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. I
Yeah.
get Chekhov to say something to me. Just I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'm just going to ask. I think maybe one or two more questions about. And I just want one thing. I want it's about DS9 specifically, and it's true. It's when I've watched DS9, you know, it is as clear as day that you and Avery Brooks had a real father son relationship on screen, but I'm pretty sure you also had that relationship continued, after the camera stopped rolling and into the real world.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Avery and I always will. Um, yeah. He's he's like a father to me. He always will be, and I'll always love him like a father. Um, yeah, he's been there through my ups and downs in life, through my immaturity and maturity, and through all in betweens. And he's been a steady rock for me, a foundational pillar, and somebody who has led by example, um, just by how he lives his life.
Cool. Yeah, we could talk for hours about him, and I'm not going to do that to you. Um, but yeah, from what I've heard in the past, he sounds like a phenomenal person to have worked with. Um, I'm pretty sure he came into your life at the exact time that you needed him to be there.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he came into. I mean, I was really at a vulnerable point at that particular point in my life, going through stuff personally with the family. But he stepped in and filled those shoes and steered me right. Was always being a guidance to me, both in just regular life and professionally, in every way that you can be a guidance to somebody. He was for me, and so yeah, I will always love him. We've maintained our connection, and so that's it. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Well, so here's the last question I ask everybody. What Star Trek technology do you wish existed today?
I mean, I would like to get beamed up. I think beaming would be great. I mean, if you can just transport from here to there and instantly, I can only imagine, how nice it would be to be able to travel for the afternoon to go see the pyramids and come back.
Hmm.
Um,
Agreed.
that would be amazing. And I think it would be revolutionary as far as changing the landscape of the world. Um, I think there's a lot of other ones that are great. Um, for medical, would be the tricorder. It would be something that would
Hmm.
improve medicine in that capacity. I think that would be really handy as well for advancement of people. But Star
Yeah.
Trek has invented so many things, and one by one they start to become real. And so I wouldn't be surprised if all of them become real at some point or another.
I agreed. I agree. Well, Cirroc, I just want to say, if you have anything you want to say about the seventh rule, like a plug for it or something, you just go right on ahead.
Yeah, tune into the seventh rule. Come join the family. We are all encompassing. We embrace everybody. We love to hear people's perspective, and it's a real big family. That's one thing that has been the treasure of this experience for me. Not only growing closer to my um, co-hosts and being close with Ryan and Melissa and Aaron, we all grew closer together. But everybody else in the family that joined our group, even those that don't show up, whose names just get read out, they're they are a part of us. And when we see each other at conventions, there's that special bond that we have, that special connection, and I feel honored to have been a part of, building that kind of a family.
Hmm. Well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for welcoming me into the seventh rule family. And I think I will be hanging around for quite a while. So, thanks for your time today, Strock, and I hope you have a rest of your evening.
Uh, Thanks, Chris. Wish you success here with the transporter room. Many more episodes to come, and go along for the ride as I did. It's a fun journey.
It is. It's been fun. So, all right. You have a good evening, sir. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
For as little as $5 per month, you can gain early access to the full ad-free versions of all interviews, plus additional exclusive content by joining Patreon.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, and welcome to the Transporter Room. Today, we have a very special guest join us, Commodore Trevor. Trevor is one of the hosts of the popular YouTube channel Salon. So let's beam Trevor in. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How's your day been, sir?
So far, so good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I am glad you were able to do this. I've interviewed Stan, and I was like, we gotta get the other one, and so get the other host, and because then that way we can, maybe we can spot check his answers.
Oh, is this like a deposition where you're going to check my answers?
Nah, no depositions here. No lawyer. I'm in IT. I'm not in law. Oh my
No,
god.
I'm thrilled, and he had a great time, so I appreciate
Good.
the invite.
Well, good. Well, thank you. Yeah. So honestly, I don't really know other than the Salon Trek, is that your day job, or do you have another day job?
I do have a day job that keeps me quite busy, and enjoy it very much. But I've been in the same field for 20 some odd years now. But as a hardcore trekker from age 7, and I'm 48 now, it's just a thing that one, thanks to the pandemic, if any positive things came out of it, I think a lot of fun relationships and hobbies came out of it. Um, Thanks to that, you know, the salon was sort of born, and it happened much by accident with perhaps Stan and I pushing things along a little bit. But yeah, no, have a day job and a life outside of the salon. But yeah, no, the salon definitely keeps us busy and is definitely a lot of fun. But it really is born out of love of Trek and just the relationships that were created by it and for it. So
I'm pretty sure the algorithm threw the salon at me, and I like it. You know, I love how. Well, first off, not everybody agrees on everything at
not even
all.
close.
Not even close. And then, you know, I can just tell that you guys really just like entertaining us and giving your opinions, and you know, and as you said, this came out of the pandemic, but I've heard that a lot from a lot of people I've talked to, like you know, Fathery and some others, that you know, and Goodwill, that a lot of these shows and their channels were born during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was sort of by accident, like I said. It was several of us all listening to Twitter Spaces back when that was a little bit more popular. I think they're still around, but and I still call it Twitter because I'm stubborn. Um, but there was a Twitter space. Starfleet Sohail was hosting on a weekly space, and there were a couple of us that were we were participating, but also just kind of chatting on the side with each other. And it was one of those things where, you know, Sohail does a fantastic job of having a very structured, very, you know, he's going to talk for an hour, he's going to get everything he wants and including, you know, making sure that the participants are feeling like they got to, you know, share everything they wanted to share. So he's a lovely host and very good at all of that. But when it ended, we noticed every week a bunch of us were like, but we want to keep talking. Like, but there's no format to do that. And it didn't make sense to ramble on for hours on a formal, you know, show with a formula. And Stan and I started chatting, and we said, why don't we get a couple of the folks that, you know, are on this chat thread, and we threw together our own space that morphed into a YouTube show that morphed into something with a little bit of structure. But you know, chaos is part of our brand. So we're not all supposed to agree. We're not it's a fairly large panel sometimes not. But we're the 8 or 9 of us, depending on you know what week it is, are truly people that just sort of uh fell in friend love with each other. We didn't They were friendships that were supposed to happen in our opinion. And happened quite organically, and the show is all of these diverse opinions about Trek. There are I think there's probably somebody who could claim any one Trek show as their favorite amongst the group. So there's plenty of diversity of opinion, and if you watch as you have and you've commented, and we appreciate it, when you jump into the comments, and sometimes it's hard because people don't want to take sides, but you kind of have to because we're all arguing with each other and arguing over each other, and it's
Oh
all out of
yeah.
it's all friendship and it's all love. And what's great is that it's kind of a thing that a lot of us had in our childhood or in high school, where we had like a, you know, a group that watched whatever show was on at the time, because we're age diverse as well, so it depends on what was airing at that particular moment in time. But we all had that friend group, and we've all sort of drifted apart from that friend group and then found each other. So it's that all over again. And those of us that are in relationships are not in relationships with Trekkers, so it's helpful to have somebody to
I've heard
pour the
that.
fandom out to and share it with. Yeah. I mean, my husband is I will say Trek tolerant, but not a huge fan. He does go to Vegas when the group goes, and he has a good time with us, and also occasionally has a spa day when he's had enough. That's okay. But we have each other, and we have the show, and the show is really what I described. It's that friend group all talking and arguing about a particular topic and just having a good time, and we just happen to let people watch. It's not a let's get together and talk about what content we're going to produce and what we're going to, and not that there's anything wrong with that. There's plenty of space for it, and it's wonderful and it entertains people. Our mission, though, is to just allow people to watch the friendship and to watch the conversation, and we hope that people are entertained, and it turns out they are. So,
Oh
yay for
yeah,
us.
I think so. I mean, especially when Will gets on a tear. Oh,
Well, it's fun to watch. I don't know that I've ever seen them disagree, but it's fun to watch Will get wound up and to get Joanne wound up, and then if Krista happens to be wound up at the same time, it's just a I just grab a cocktail and lean back and watch because the hilarity ensues.
oh yeah, and and especially with y'all doing this last one, I guess it was a 4-part series on Enterprise. Was it 4 or more? I can't remember now.
So Thumb War used to be, yeah, with our Thumb War series where we rate each episode in a season, we used to try to squeeze all 20 whatever episodes into an evening, and we realized it was a little much. So for Enterprise, we actually split each season in half. So we did 8 weeks of Enterprise. Yeah. So that was actually a lot of fun because I hadn't revisited Enterprise in a long time. So I enjoyed getting to do that with them.
Yeah, and I'm actually, to add additional content, I've already started doing with other people that I'm, have guest hosts. We're doing recaps / reviews of Enterprise right now. I think I have 8 recorded. One we released Broken Bow Sunday, last Sunday, and it's something so I just did a review with Rachel from Tech Trek. And what was interesting, because it doesn't really matter, as I was trying to think, I want to give a spoiler, but that's fine. As we were watching the last episode we just recorded, it just blows my mind. We were doing Terra Nova, and I guess after watching y'all's shows and everything, and even doing some of the the episodes I do on the Seventh Rule, well, I'm when we combat different series, I was watching Terra Nova and I was like, okay, I still think it's a good episode, but we got into a section, and as we were talking about it, I started realizing, like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. And it was when T'Pol and them are talking about, well, why didn't you have the Vulcans, and y'all may have even brought this up, but why didn't you ask the Vulcans, for one, to go out there? Well, obviously humans are hard-headed, but it just, as we were discussing, I started thinking, like, wait a second, this just doesn't make sense. You're telling me why didn't Earth, when they lost contact with that colony, actually do something about it, or the family members that would have probably still been on Earth. So it just was so funny. Literally, as we were doing the recording, I just started thinking, well, this is just a bunch of BS. Like, if that was my family, I'd be knocking, someone's door, like, what the hell?
It's funny how we can get real world angry at that show sometimes, or any of the shows, not just Enterprise, but Star Trek in general. And one thing I said I appreciated getting to chat and revisit the show because I hadn't in a long time, but doing so with my Salon friends. But the crazy part is, and it never fails to happen, angles I never thought of before, things I never, I'm so used to watching it through my own lens and just watching it through my own experiences, or having opinions that are based on, some of my TNG opinions are based on 10-year-old Trev watching season 1. Like, I have a deep-rooted love for season 1 of TNG, and I know that it's not a great version of Trek. It's not putting Trek's best foot forward, but I don't care. It's my childhood. Like, you know what I mean? It's part of a very happy part of my life. Not that any part of it hasn't been, but for the most part, it's something that I really enjoyed then. It was the first new, I did fall in love with the original series on reruns as a little kid, but being that excited about that show, and then it came out and just loving it even when it was bad, uh, um, is something that I didn't get to see the criticism until I started watching it as an adult and talking to other adults about that show. And the same goes for Enterprise. I was just out of college, I think, when Enterprise started, so uh, my perceptions were very different than they are now. than they were when I wasn't talking to a bunch of people about Star Trek. So it's cool to actually have some more positive opinions about certain aspects of it, and then things that kind of make me go, like to your point.
Well, they do, and I am trying to find the episode that really kind of shocked us as well. Watching on TNG, and kind of like you say, I'm 48 as well. I'll be 49 this year, and so I watched a lot. Again, I was 11 when TNG came out, and some of the episodes had made no sense, or I just thought, okay, whatever. I didn't really realize it, but one of the ones that really kind of was surprising was the episode. I'm trying to find the name. I did a review on should have been season 4. It's the one we meet the Trill. It's the first time
the host.
And as I was preparing for my review for the Seventh Rule, I watched that episode I think 3 times, and it was so weird. It was the last time I watched it, I realized, at least from what I could tell, and then the group agreed as well, is that when the new host came out and it was female and not, and Dr. Crusher was like, shocked, but she made some comments about like, well, if it was a different, scenario, time. Long story short, they realized that was all they could finally talk about without getting probably in trouble with censors about same-sex relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and watching it numerous times, and finally just it clicked.
Yeah, and watching it from a different perspective and a different lens now, and watching it back, I remember. I don't remember my exact, but however old we were when that episode was on, I do remember kind of scratching my head a little and feeling, and this may have just been pre-out Trev having a response of like, I wish they had pushed that a little further. And then now, as looking far back at that closet that I blew out of at some point, and looking at that episode from my perspective now, the amount of almost insult, and maybe not even almost, that some of what was said in that episode and kind of how that lands now, is one of those, not only indicative of what we're talking about in terms of Trek evolving even when it's sitting still, but it's weird to have disappointment in something that you're so fond of, but also how kind of cool that Trek is multidimensional enough to do that for us, because so many things have disappointing facets to them, even when they're things that we've looked up to, people we've looked up to. It's one of the things I love about maybe different podcasts for a different time, but Battlestar Galactica, so many characters that are heroes are flawed, and that's one of the beautiful things about that show. But with Trek, it's great that we can analyze it critically, and it's great that we can love it as much as we do, but it's also great that it has flaws, and that we can look back and that it's improved upon itself, not just in a creative sense, but also Gates being interviewed about that episode, speaking about it. She was critical of it at the time. She's been critical of it now in terms of her dialogue and what she was, saying about as Beverly Crusher. It's almost not believable that was Bev's response. Like, it's one thing to say, I'd like to just pick up a body and run with it, but or to just declare yourself like incapable of moving beyond your having fallen in love with the first host. But the fact that she was able to then have those feelings with Riker means she wasn't tethered to the host's body. So it had to be about the host's gender presentation, and that was a problem for her is kind of not believable. So it's a wonderful, obviously, episode, even in its flaws, because here we are talking about it 30 years later.
Well, exactly. And another one that I just watched again, and as one of the other members made a comment about, and we've already discussed this, I think, a little bit, how some Trek episodes get better sometimes with age, and or the message has become more relevant today than it was 33 years ago. And The Outcast is one of those, we felt, because it's talking, again, 33 years ago when it was written and produced, like you said, the whole transgender and all that stuff was not a discussion topic at all in any way, or very minimal, I guess. And I have to remember, I live in Texas, so that's a so
no, that's a fair statement that it the conversations weren't what they are now. I think that conversation has changed in many ways for the better, and in some not so much. But it's interesting that upon first presentation, that was almost Trek's attempt to deal with same-sex relationships, and then it was almost, I have to assume by accident, a better allegory for trans individuals and the trans experience. But even then, there are flaws in how it's presented, and I give Trek credit where credit is due. I think that episode was slightly ahead of its time. I think I agree with Jonathan Frakes' criticism of casting a cis female in the role of his love interest. He would have preferred that been played by a male actor.
I know. I didn't know that until I think it was Jason Oaken or one of the other Seventh Row members brought that up, and I was like, "What?" And so I actually looked it up, and sure enough, he was actually very unhappy about that.
Yeah, I mean, and you just think about that aspect alone and how much more powerful that episode could have been for a lot of different, for many of the different stories that it was accidentally telling, including the one that it was trying to tell on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and it also, it sort of grazes past the notion of different types of harmful therapy for folks that are not cishet and presenting as such. But it has plenty of flaws, but it also it's unique for next gen. It's unfortunately not unique for a lot of the pushback that they got, and a lot of folks have waited a very long time to see themselves in Trek, myself included, and a lot of folks are still waiting. So hopefully it but Trek is not afraid to continue to evolve, and so
especially
I'm glad
not now,
right?
With all the new stuff, they're not afraid. I mean, just Discovery alone took a lot, as we both know, it took a lot of hate. It's like, that's not Trek. And for me, what it was, and it was the Klingons initially. The rest of the stuff was fine. But I finally stopped and said, okay, I'm just going to watch it, the first two seasons to catch up. Because I was like, okay, I want to know what is it all about? And it honestly was a good series. I enjoyed it, except for, there obviously, as you said, the flaws. Now, all of the flaws I have with it were the technical flaws. The spore drive and all this stuff. And, but all the stuff, Sonequa Martin Green, oh my God.
Oh, she is, the TNG cast always refer to themselves as lightning in a bottle in terms of their relationships and their love and fondness for each other. Sonequa Martin Green being in Star Trek is in and of itself lightning in a bottle. Now the cast is wonderful. They're all lovely people, as far as we know. We've never heard any, there's no tell-all book waiting to be released. But Sonequa, as a number one on the call sheet, clearly gets all of the appropriate praise from her castmates, but is also praised from creatives, is praised from technical, folks. And just as a Trek fan, that she shared her talent with us and in this universe is a gift. And I'm a weirdo Discovery fan, and then I am very fond of the first season. I know there's a lot of folks that either prefer second or really prefer like fourth, fifth. I love
3, 4, and 5.
3, 4, and 5. I loved the first season. I struggled a little bit with the second, only because I felt like it went on for too long. But it felt like it was like an 8-episode story that they
Extend
made
it.
13. Yeah. But that happens, whatever, it's streaming. But Discovery as an experiment in Trek, the whole idea of we're going to do a, and Enterprise, it should get all of its just desserts in terms of trying to tell a season-long story in season 3, but it didn't really work. And it was a cohesive narrative thread run through the season, but it wasn't a streaming serialized story like Discovery was. And I love that Trek is old enough now and seasoned enough to experiment with itself in terms of how are we going to do this and how are we going to tell these stories. The idea of focusing on a single character with the veracity that they did, I think is fantastic, and I don't think they could have asked for anyone better than Sonequa to carry that story. I find it interesting when people criticize that facet, because it feels I have yet to hear a criticism of the stories focusing on Michael Burnham wherein there isn't a parallel in another series or series of films where a particular character is focused upon that doesn't receive that same criticism. So I think it's a little bit obvious sometimes when folks are a little hypercritical. That said, it doesn't mean everybody that dislikes Discovery is wrong. It doesn't mean everybody that dislikes that version of storytelling is wrong. And call me an optimist, and an annoying one at that, but I love that there's enough Star Trek for people to pick and choose some of it that they aren't fond of. Because that wasn't the case when you and I were watching TNG season 1 in 1987. Like, we were like, this is it. Like, it's that in the original series. That's all we got.
Yeah. And I didn't even have I was talking to somebody, I don't remember even having TOS. If it was on, it might have been, 11 o'clock midnight, and I was already in bed.
Yeah,
at that time in my life. So,
at the time, by the time TNG rolled around, I don't think it was airing regularly for me either. I think I may have had a couple of the films on VHS, and I don't think I had any of the episodes. Those were on in reruns when I was little. Like, when the first episode I ever saw, I was 6 or 7, probably 7 years old. And for a year or two was able to absorb them, and then we moved as a family from the Maryland DC area down to Florida, and in that move I sort of lost my connection to Trek until TNG premiered. So
and I didn't get to watch much of DS9 or any of that stuff either. Just, again, the market where we're at just didn't have it all. And so again, TNG was kind of my episodes and series for a long time. And, I was thinking about something we were talking about, the shows that people, will just dig in on a character. And Janeway was one of them as well at the beginning. And I didn't know a story from Garrett that he told us about the absolute hate that Paramount got after the pilot aired. It just shocked me.
It boggles the mind, doesn't it, that a show that seeks to explore diversity and to champion it would receive such criticism when they depict it from a casting perspective. It just seems antithetical to Trek. I still don't understand, and forgive me if this ruffles any feathers in viewers, but I don't understand like right-wing Trek fans. I'm like, what, do you just like spaceships? Like, I don't understand what you're watching and enjoying. Like, what is it that's really tickling your fancy there? Because its purpose is to exude the benefits of a particular openness and a particular hopefulness and a particular embracing of diversity and diverse thought and diverse representation, and to not appreciate that when it's presented through the casting of characters just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Because that was Gene's whole, premise, is to have a future where we're all hate to say it, we just all live together somewhat happily, I don't,
Most of the
yeah,
time.
yeah, that's why I'm not going to say all the time, but and again, yeah, it just shocked me when he said that because I would have not imagined, but anyway, that's just the way of the world, and people were not ready for it, which, yeah, it's a good series. I liked it. There's really no Trek that we don't like. Maybe they have series and episodes that we don't like, but um, I do have a hard time watching TOS, not because of usually the content, more because of the special effects or the lack thereof. And um, it's just, again, I was TNG and then the movies. So, but I've gone through all of season 1. We've started season 2, and it's actually not. I actually enjoy it now that I've started watching now. Some of the stories, totally different. They have not aged well, but
there
they
are many that are, yes, difficult.
but they still it does show us that we have progressed to the fact that we're actually like, oh, that's not good. And now we realize it though. What some of the stuff, the themes they were doing, we're like, okay, now I understand. Yeah, that was they missed the mark a little, but again, 1966.
It's funny too when I wish more people realized there are folks that sometimes complain about newer stuff being sort of less cloak and dagger in their approach to some of the themes. Obviously there was a lot of allegory built into the stories in the original series, and not so much anymore. Now things can be a little bit more spoken and open. And I wish folks that were critical of that realized why that was. that it was cloak and dagger because it had to be. They were dancing around censors and trying to make sure, well, no one will notice that we're saying racism is bad if we're talking about a green person versus, talking about actual people that exist on Earth that are being treated badly, and have been systemically. So we can say that now. So let's say it. We don't need as many allegories anymore, because it's because, thank goodness, the real world has evolved just a little bit, not as much as those of us who are hoping for a Star Trek future would like, but it has happened. And so I think we should, I would hope that those folks would eventually come to understand that and maybe embrace it a little bit more.
True. So I'm kind of curious here. So I know since the Salon, is more of the group getting together, discussing Trek and everything. But I know y'all have done some interviews with guests, but I don't remember, so far with what you've been doing with the channel, has there been an interview with someone that, that you just really were like, man, that was so cool to do?
We've done a couple, but I will say I have only participated in 2. And I think they're 2 that I'm really, really proud of and was really, really excited about. Aaron Watke's one of them. And it was kind of funny that happened sort of like the Salon, almost by accident. And I say that from we didn't realize we had his attention. And so as soon as we did, a few of us, and really in particular Stan, did a lot of work to make sure that we scheduled it and that it happened. But we didn't realize he was watching us, and one day we just got a comment in the chat, and we were talking about, we were in the middle of discussing Prodigy, and I don't remember which season we were talking, or which series of episodes, because we did them in chunks. I don't remember which one we were talking about, but all of a sudden we just, you see the comment pop up on your screen, and it's like, okay, remember that because we stream live, and so it's, remember yes, it's recorded and people can watch it back, but like your reaction is your reaction, and there's no editing, so good luck. And so we saw the comment and we were like, oh, everybody, be on your best behavior, which is funny because he later shared with us that us not being on our best behavior is part of the reason why he was watching us in the first place, because there may or may not be mood enhancing substances encouraged among the panelists. So having him comment, and then we went into action, and those that most of the panel was present for the actual interview. Stan did most of the logistical work in arranging it, but having a live conversation, and he joined us live. That was the other piece. It wasn't a
Oh,
recorded
hell yeah.
interview. So having him drop in and talk with us and spend time with us, and then something that we don't hide it, but I don't think we advertise it a lot either. When we drop off, when we end our live stream, we're usually the rest of it just hanging out on screen for about an hour or so, just shooting the breeze and doing, talking about things that we don't necessarily want the world to know. And at the end of our Aaron interview, he stayed with us for like another 20-30 minutes and was like, do you guys have any questions that you didn't get to ask? And we were like, yeah, everybody pulls out their notepads and starts asking questions. And just getting to, and obviously there were things he couldn't answer and wasn't
True.
gonna break any sort of agreements that he
NDAs.
signed with us, but he was just delightful. And I feel like that was one of those moments where if I could travel back in time like 40 years and tell 7-year-old Trevor that he was going to talk to a writer from Star Trek one day on the internet. First of all, what the hell's the internet? But second of all, I would not have believed that I would be having that conversation, even up through teenage high school Trevor hanging out with his fellow nerd friends, who many of whom I'm still in touch with. To tell them that I was having that conversation, like that just was not a thing that I thought would ever happen, and so that one's really, really special.
I am with you 100% because
Yeah.
I can't believe, I have, some of them haven't been released yet, but still, I've interviewed Liz Klikowski and so I've had hers comes out, her episode's coming out tomorrow. Connor and Dom, Cirroc, and I'm like, what?
Well, you're talking to Cirroc, what, like once a week?
Well, true. That's another thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
What the F? I'm like, I would have never, and and being on and then sometimes Denise joins us, sometimes and Walter joins. I'm like, what?
It's a little pinch yourself, isn't it?
It's a lot
Yeah.
to pinch yourself,
Yeah.
it just blows my mind. And John Billingsley, oh my God, Hitman is so fun. I'd never had to delete so many words out of my, recording just to,
Reminds me, I'm actually kind of proud of myself right now because I haven't given you any that you would have to delete, and you didn't tell me not to.
And I don't have a problem with it. But no, I don't have a problem. If we need to bleep stuff, we just clear it out. But
no, but to answer your question, the Aaron interview was really, really special just because of everything that I said. And the other one that was really special and important, and I was really I really enjoyed the entire conversation. We had to change a little bit of it because it involved some stuff about Trek Talks that ended up getting delayed, and so we had to adjust some of what we shared. But it was an interview with Laurie Ulster from Trek Movie, who is just such a delightful person, just a delightful human, let alone a wonderful person to have a Trek conversation with. And Laurie was, one of those people that the first time I heard her voice on Trek Movie's original podcast when they were doing their Shuttle Pod podcast, which I started listening to during the pandemic, not just the sound of her voice, I don't mean it that way, but like the things that she was saying, I was so identifying with in terms of, that was a fairly diverse panel of opinions as well. And she would sometimes say things that I'm like, yes, that's what I want to say. I've developed a little bit of a Twitter friendship with Brian Drew from Trek Movie as well. And so like sometimes when I disagree with Brian, it's fun. We only, I think, ever disagree about Trek. But she was always saying the things that I wanted her, that I wanted to be saying. And so it was like a weird form of fandom there that happened. And so kind of going full circle and having her on a show that from my perspective, and my involvement with it was sort of inspired some of what happened with the Salon. We wanted to become a thing because I started listening to other people talk about Trek, and I was eventually desiring to participate in the conversation. I think I'm a reasonably good listener, but I also like to talk.
Oh
So
yeah.
you can only, when you're a talker, you can only listen for so long before you got to chime in. And I was like, I want to chime in. I want to have my own conversations. And so getting to talk to somebody who's been doing Trek conversations for a long time and is very active in the Trek community and is very active in Trektivism, it was cool to get to have that little sit down with her. And that one was it was just me and Stan talking to her, and it was on a weekend that we did do a pre-record, but that was just a delightful time with somebody who I've gotten to spend a little time with in Vegas, but not enough of a like let's just sit down and talk for an hour. Like that was really cool. So I enjoyed both of those conversations a lot.
Well, that's cool. Well, and it sounds like you go to STLV. Do you always go, or how many?
Yeah, this will be my fourth time. Fourth time? Fourth time. I missed a year, and I went the year that it first came back, like sort of mid-pandemic. Time has no meaning. The pandemic was like the nexus. Like I don't understand what happened in there, and no one else does either. But I went one year, and it was just my husband and I. I didn't have any other real Trek connections, although I did bump into the Trek movie gang. I got a nice face mask from the Trek movie on it. Very indicative of a very specific time period. And I only went for one day. That said, my biggest takeaway, and if the opportunity ever presents itself, please feel free to share. One of the most, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right adjective, but just one of the most generous conversations I've ever had with a Trek performer, or any performer for that matter, was with Cirroc that year that my husband and I went up to get his autograph. It was like a weird time of day, so the room wasn't super crowded, and he felt comfortable just kind of continuing to talk to us and gave of his time. And it was also around, don't remember exactly the time frame, but it was reasonably close to Aaron Eisenberg's passing, and it was coincidentally very close to my best friend from high school passing. And so there was a weird little bit of a connection conversation about just losing people that mean the world to you. So that was interesting, but not but just he was, I can't describe it any other way. He was just incredibly generous, and it was a wonderful, delightful conversation. And ever since, I've told people, if you're remotely connected to Star Trek or in your at a convention, go up to his table, because it's I don't care how long the line is, he's worth your time. Get up there, because he will give to you what you expect and more. And it was a delightful conversation, and in all the years of convention going, it was one of the best.
I can concur 100% everything you just said about him. He is the most down to earth, just level headed, intelligent, pick a word, individual. And he is as genuine as they come.
Yeah. And I will say, I got to give credit to, doing the podcast, on the Seventh Rule. It's so cool to hear the perspective, not just, we've all heard actors give perspectives on work that they were involved with, but now that you guys are going through TNG, hearing a Trek actor who wasn't necessarily a Trek fan, watching it and enjoying it and connecting with it and sharing and being critical and starting to do the things that we've all been doing this whole time is just delightful to hear. It's a lot of fun to listen to, for all of you, but for Cirroc as well, and his perspectives.
Oh yeah, his perspective. Sometimes I'm just like, wow, how did you come up with that? It's just amazing. Yeah, no, he's a great person, and I'm gonna get to meet quite a few people that I'm on chats with on a regular basis, which is something that I have learned between doing my own stuff, the Seventh Rule, all these different channels. It's like everybody's just so open and welcoming. It's kind of scary in some ways. You're like, is this possible? But everyone is just so nice. And when you meet someone, I mean, I met people even in Dallas. We've stayed in connection, in contact. And literally, we just met at the convention, and we still talk. And it just the whole Star Trek fandom just really blows my mind at times because like one of the individuals that was in the group that I was at the convention, she flew all the way from Australia just to come to that convention so she could meet Gates McFadden because that was she's her person. And I'm like, Australia?
Yeah. You couldn't get much
Okay.
further away if you tried.
No. But everybody's so nice and just welcoming. And yeah, I mean, I talked with Andy Holt, who goes to like every single convention on the planet, and man, just the warmest guy out there. He just, when we were sitting there, he's like, "Hey, want to come?" And Brad was at just come table. I'm like, okay, it's just so crazy.
Very nice.
And so I'm just, I do need to, and we've been talking about Trek, but I've got to get some of the specific questions, obviously, that I'd like to ask is,
Sure.
Obviously, what first drew you into Star Trek? What was the catalyst?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have the question in advance, but kind of anticipated, and I wish I had a better answer, because it really is I was 7 years old or so. I remember specifically which episode it was, which is kind of a weird memory to have, but it was the Enterprise incident. I remember because I was watching it, I was very drawn in. I would imagine as a 7-year-old, just anything with that many colors on it would be interesting. I mean, there's these, primary color suits, and there was a lot of interesting purple lighting going on that Romulan ship. So it was very colorful and sort of kid friendly. But I remember there was a whole issue in that episode of like beaming between ships, and I would do this frequently if I didn't understand something on television. I just walked out of the room that I was in, went and found my mom, and I said, I don't understand something. And I can't remember if she explained it or if my older brother explained it, but somebody gave me a Star Trek answer, which was just like they knew what Star Trek was, they knew what a transporter was. So they kind of explained it in a way that was like, no, that's just how they get. And I'm like, I don't understand. Does that little disc on the floor like fly from one part of, from one place to another? Like I didn't fully comprehend. And eventually just became more and more enamored with it, and was completely hooked from just how fantastic it all was, from a kid's perspective. And I would imagine the thing that kept me engaged was the optimism and the positivity, I will say. Obviously, I didn't at that age fully comprehend all of the stories or all of what they were trying to express. Um, Particularly because by the time I was watching it, some of those things didn't need to be coded. Like they could just be discussed at that point. Not as many as now, but a little bit more than in the 60s. Um, so yeah, I wish I had a better answer other than like it was colorful and attractive to a kid, and I didn't understand stuff, so I had questions. And as a fairly curious child, I was like, wait, explain more. But that was the initial draw, and then I just think the relationships, the sense of humor that was running through it, there was something fanciful and magical about it, and that I think had me hooked and has continued to hook me since.
Oh yeah, I think it drew all of us into that in some way. I mean, I always have a hard question trying to decide. I mean, what got me in was family and friends and all that, and cousins and all that got me to watch sci-fi, which led into Star Trek. Um, you know, and then I always have a hard time picking my favorite series. I may get in trouble because we just did a Thumb Wars on this, but Enterprise is still probably one of my more favorite series, followed by. Actually, I'd have to say now it's really grown to DS9.
Yeah, for me, I recently described this on Blue Sky. I chimed in on something that Lori Ulster was talking about on her thread, and I just or on her page, and I just commented that I've finally realized after 4 decades of fandom that my favorite show is seasonal. Depending on time of year, I bounce back and forth between DS9 and TNG. My DS9 fondness is, it was sort of was sort of the misfit kid of Trek at the time when it first aired. It certainly has a lot more fans than it did then. And I was drawn toward it for, I think, that and a bunch of other reasons. But I was more of a defender of it because it received so much flack and criticism at the time, and sort of dismissal from a lot of Trek fans. So just depending on the mood of the time that the question is asked, I bounce back and forth between TNG and DS9, but both are far more rewatchable for me than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what it is about. Well, I think one of my reasons for Enterprise, and just my reason, is the fact that and I know as we did the Thumb Wars, yeah, they stumbled bad in a lot of the stories, but what I liked about it was letting us see us take our first steps into, deep space and trying not to screw up. And they didn't do the best job all the time, at all. But, that's why. And then you just obviously go back to the other episodes and series. And I think and I like your answer about it being seasonal, because it really kind of depends. Sometimes, like, okay, I'm just not in the mood for that, but I'll sit there and binge watch something else.
And summer vacation as a kid, it was always TNG reruns every day at 4:00. So like, it reminds me of being a kid on summer vacation, and who doesn't want to remember that? Because that was a fantastic time. So, TNG makes me think of that. But when it starts to get colder out, I don't know. I want to bundle up and watch DS9. It doesn't make any sense, but that's how it works. And I would be remiss to not mention that I love Lower Decks. I mean, it's where Salon gets its name. The DS9 episode where Mariner is invited to what she thinks is a party, but everyone keeps correcting her and telling her it's a salon. And then she gets there, and it's just a bunch of craziness and chaos, which is exactly what we are. So we are the salon. We got to explain that to Tawny Newsome last year at STLV. Stan and I went up to her table and got her autograph and got to give her a salon candle, which is a unique giveaway for our followers. And yeah, and then she took a picture of it and texted it to Mike McMahon, which was cool. But I would be, I don't think you can love TNG and not love Lower Decks. Like those just they're so complementary of one another that it just makes sense.
They are.
So, I didn't mean to give you three answers to your question, but those are my three answers.
No, that's big. Well, and I agree. I've always been iffy on animated series at times as an adult, because I'm like, I'm watching a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, oh my God, Lower Decks and Prodigy, both of them, I'm just like, they're phenomenal. And I have no problems watching it. And then, after I started watching the Lower Decks, I'm like, okay, we need more or whatever, but you'd love to have that. And then, was it, I remember who I was talking. Oh, it was Joe. It was Joel Vallis. And we were talking about, the crossover episode. Those old scientists
it's just brilliant. There's no other way to describe it. Yeah.
I kid you not. I probably replayed that episode once a day for quite a while, because I couldn't get past everything they just did. Like the love for, I just loved how, well, first the comedy, the timing, they were just so hilarious, and the fanboying that they would do.
I think that's the best part, because it allows, like, we're laughing because we're laughing at ourselves. We're like, if I ended up on Pike's Enterprise, that's what I would be acting like right now. Like, there's no, I'm going to play it cool, I'm a cool time traveler. Like, no, I would be running around touching everything, breaking things, telling people how much I admire them. Like, I would completely screw up the timeline, and I own it. It's fine.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that was such a great, and I loved all the homages they gave to like Enterprise. And I mean, I would have never expected, well, even Pike made a comment. He's like, even I'd be fanboying if I was on Archer ship, and when you had Ortegas and her were like sitting there, taking the flooring up, and like, her did all this, and Travis Mayweather, like the first pilot of the NX-01, I was just like, What? How did they? Yeah, that was the. I wish. Anyway, we could talk on that one forever, but it was such a great episode. Yeah, if it'd been VHS tape, I probably would. It would have broken because it would have gone bad by now.
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm gonna. Usually, my last question I ask is, what piece of Star Trek technology do you wish existed today?
Ooh, all of it. Gosh, it's so funny because I think I'm apprehensive only because there are so many things that would be convenient that I think humanity today would also abuse. So I immediately thought of transporters, and then I'm like, transporters would make a pretty gruesome weapon if you wanted to use them that way. So I'm actually going to give an answer that I didn't think would be my response to this question, and it's the Enterprise's computer. And maybe not. Maybe we delete how to build stuff, but just include history and how people got to where they are in the 24th century, and just let us be better from our own past mistakes. Like it's uh, like I said, the easy answer is transporters because I hate travel. I like getting to places. I like being at new places. I don't like the prospect of getting there and the process of getting there. Clearly no weapons because we'd screw that up real fast. Warp drive would be amazing, but also a weapon. So I'm scared about that too. So I will say the computer with all of that. That's my nerdy answer, but my fun answer might be also just some of the medical equipment. I think a tricorder could go a long way toward detecting illnesses that can't be detected now with modern technology. The idea, and this is sort of timely given the time that we're recording this with the recent is it the purple walk? I'm getting it wrong.
Purple stride.
Purple stride.
Purple
Thank
stride.
you so much. Pancreatic cancer is one of those things where it doesn't present usually until it's too late. How amazing would it be if we could prevent that from being a problem because we could detect it faster with the imaging of just a small handheld device. So yeah, I'll go with medical technology as my more fun answer, but I would like humanity to be better. Fast forward it by giving us some historical context through the ship's computer. So there, well, I still can't give you one answer. I'm always giving you more than one answer. Those are my two answers for that one question.
I'm okay. Well, and I like your answer about the computer, honestly, because as someone who works in IT, it makes complete sense. I mean, I agree with you. The computer would, just that capacity and the speed of it would be awesome to have. That's a good answer, actually. And it would be nice to have thought about it.
A little bit of the AI of Majel, like knowing when things should be, like, Majel's voice telling you when that's not a good idea. That might be a cool thing. We'll see.
That would be really cool, actually.
Yeah.
I just love to have Majel Barrett's voice just telling me, good morning or, whatever.
Absolutely.
That's like, I mean,
you don't really want to have that for breakfast, do you? Like it would be nice to have that around.
Well, I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, this is going to show my Star Trek nerd. My Alexa wake word is not Alexa. It's computer.
Same.
I don't want to say it too loud.
I'm surprised she didn't wake up because I said it and she's right behind me.
Yeah. Same here. It's so funny every now and then I'll be watching something, Star Trek episode or something. They say the word and I hear it coming out of the kitchen. I didn't understand that. Or I'm like,
I wasn't talking to you.
I'm like, stop.
Who? It's a Beverly in Remember Me moment. I wasn't talking to you.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, Trev, thank you for giving me your time tonight and this afternoon. And it was so much fun talking to you.
It was delightful.
I'm blessed.
I appreciate, like I said, I'll talk Trek to anybody that wants to talk about it, but I really appreciate the invitation. I'm a fan of the Seventh Rule and hearing you on there, and appreciate you always chiming in the comments during Salon. So it's a delight, and I appreciate the invitation.
Well, praise. Thank you so much. Well, and I hope you have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks,
Thank
you
you,
too.
sir. Bye.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.